I just kind of wanted to ask, I want more insight on this, because I think especially in the age of social media, we're hearing a lot of buzzwords. I think a few examples of that would be words like woke, or phrases like owning the libs or whatever. You already kind of touched on what your definition of woke is, but I kind of just want to hear more about that, and like, how is that attacking your freedom of speech? Who are the people that are like a part of this movement that's attacking your freedom of speech? I feel like we hear woke so much, especially from conservatives. I'm personally not one, but we never really hear like what it means. So
well, bless you for asking that question. And just in general, I think that we should demand a definition of terms. Like, if you're being attacked for being something, and if you're being punished, especially for being something, it's fair to ask, what do you mean by that thing? Right? You're racist, you're anti-Semitic, okay, well, what is that? Why don't you define it for me? And woke would definitely be in that category. I think thank you for asking that. I can give you the definition that I have in my mind. I think woke has two components. At its core, woke is an attempt by the powerful to make the less powerful shut up. All efforts to stifle speech come from the powerful, not the powerless. What's so interesting about this moment that we live in, this has been true my whole life, really, but it's a new innovation in world history where the powerful use the powerless as a pretext to crush everyone else. So what they do...
More about
yes, ma'am.
Well, when you say the powerful and the powerless, generally we associate wokeness, like you guys say it's like more LGBTQ agenda or more diversity of races. How is that the more powerful? Because those are historically oppressed groups of people.
Right. Well, that's, I mean, that may or may not be true depending, I mean, it's probably true in some ways, untrue in others. Certainly not true now.
How is that not true now?
Well, I mean, simply because if you were to, just for example, apply to Stanford Law School, which I would not recommend, but if you were to write an essay about how, growing up queer in a Midwestern farm town.
I've grown up queer in a Midwestern farm.
You should have applied to Stanford Law School. You probably would have gotten in. I'm glad you didn't. But here's what I'm saying. Leaving aside that, and I'm not, by the way, I would never discount the fact that there are people who have been victims of bias, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm merely saying that big picture, the efforts to make other people be quiet on behalf of this or that marginalized group are 100% paid for and encouraged by the richest people in our society. So if you look for, and I'll be very specific in the case of and I can never do the acronym fully, but for the gay lobby in Washington is run out of a building that was right across from my office for many years called the Human Rights Campaign, which is the largest gay lobby in Washington. Who pays for that? Where does that money come from? And they're the ones who popularize the idea that people can change their sex if they want to, transgenderism, which at the time was like a pretty boutique idea. There had always been transvestites, always in every society, including ours, but the idea that this was a category that needed federal protection and that people were born this way in the wrong body, that was a brand new idea, and I was there for that because I'm 56.
Wait, but correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the Human Rights Campaign, isn't that a nonprofit organization? So isn't it funded by, or am I wrong about that?
I think it is a nonprofit, and what's interesting, and this is a whole...
People fundraise for the Human Rights Campaign.
Sure, but you're absolutely right. It is, like most lobbies in the United States, I would say all of them actually are not federally funded, they're nonprofits, and they're among the most powerful institutions. They may be the most powerful institutions in our country. Abroad, they're called NGOs, non-governmental organizations. But in the United States, they operate as what we call nonprofits under 501c3 tax law, and that means they pay no taxes. And so they become enormously rich. Now, if I were in charge, never gonna be, unfortunately, I would eliminate all tax exemption for everybody, for churches, the Human Rights Campaign. Everyone pays the same tax because we're all Americans. That would be my view. I think it's, no, but that's a sidebar. I would just say, if you look, and I would encourage you to do this, to look into who funds that, and by the way, the Heritage Foundation on the right, and like all these nonprofits, it's not just the Human Rights Campaign, the people who fund them are not the least powerful. They're not funded by some, trans performer, you know, in the Castro district of San Francisco. They're funded by billionaires, all of them. BLM, the BLM riots were funded by Apple and Facebook. You know, all the biggest actors in corporate America fund these organizations, which have the effect of getting people fired from their jobs or shamed into silence.
But also, Tucker, you can make the argument that Elon Musk, he's one of the most powerful people in the world. He's a billionaire, billions and billions of dollars, and he put all his money into the Trump campaign.
Well, I wouldn't make that case. I would state it as fact. That's true.
Yeah, it's the facts.
Well, I know.
I know, you're saying that, listen. You're saying that wokeism, and it's the most powerful people suppressing the lesser powerful. There's cases where it's people that you typically agree with, where it's powerful people suppressing the lesser powerful.
That may be absolutely true. I like Elon. I'm not endorsing everything he does.
So, but that's you endorsing a more powerful individual. Why are you only against the more powerful when it's supporting things like human rights and BLM, but you're for it when it's supporting Donald Trump?
Well, I don't know that I am. I mean, I think we may have a failure of, as usual, of me to explain myself fully. So I think you're speaking about two different categories. The first category was free speech and who's funding the efforts to suppress it. And I would say free speech benefits, by definition, the powerless. So like if you don't have a lot of money and clearly, you know, your vote isn't going to turn an election, what do you have? You have your conscience, you have your voice. So traditionally, and this is why it's enshrined in the Bill of Rights, the freedom of speech is the weapon of the powerless. It's all they have is their voice. That's it. Okay? And their ability to assemble and petition and make noise and all that, right? This is what liberals used to say all the time, and I always agree with them. And you will find in every society at every time the people who are against the exercise of free speech are the powerful. You find this in, you know, the potentates of the Middle East. Who's against free speech in Saudi? Well, the king, obviously. In every country that's the case, and it's true in ours. So that's just a point I would make, and it's true for wokeism, which was a lot of things. It was identity politics, but really what was the point of it? It was identifying this group. This group has no power, therefore you're not allowed to criticize them, say the richest people in America who really don't want to hear an analysis of their leadership. That's what it's actually about. So that's the first point. You're making a second point, which I'm not sure I disagree with, which is that people who have billions of dollars have undue influence over our society. Amen, sister, I would say. I do agree with that.
Point, though, like what I'm trying to say is that you're saying that wokeism is this more powerful, suppressing the less powerful. However, I see that more in our current administration. Donald Trump is incredibly rich. He had Elon Musk, who's incredibly rich. And you're supporting the First Amendment and freedom to assemble and freedom to petition. You're saying that's a good thing. That happened this weekend with the No Kings protest. And you're here, this very rich organization, you're here actively criticizing those who went to that protest.
I did? I actually
your
don't think
organization, not you specifically.
No. What I said was,
I'm not saying what you said. I'm saying what the previous speaker said.
Okay,
the previous comedian made fun of the people who defended the No Kings.
You know, I do think, and this is news to liberals, I do think making fun of people is within bounds.
I'm not saying it's.
And
not,
I enjoy it. And so no, but I will take your where you're going seriously, and I think.
Let me finish where I was.
I can't. No, I'm going to interrupt you. No, I'm kidding. Of course you could. I'm
okay.
Totally kidding.
Thank you. What I'm saying is, if you support that First Amendment right so much, and you support the idea that the lesser powerful shouldn't be suppressed by the more powerful, I would think that you would be against the President of the United States going on his social media and posting AI videos of him dropping shit on the protesters as he's the more powerful and they're the lesser powerful.
So we may have a definition of terms problem here. So you can say, I think it's ugly that the President of the United States is posting naughty videos on his X account or whatever. Okay, fine. What I'm defending is the sacred God-given right of every person to say what he believes. That's called free speech. That's what's enshrined in our First Amendment. If you can name any example of the administration abridging that, I will agree with you 100%. I believe in that independent of party. I'm not particularly partisan, actually. I kind of hate the Republican Party, just being honest. I'm not going to vote for the Democratic Party because I think they're evil. So it puts me in a tough spot. But I'm not partisan in the slightest. I never have been. So if you can name an example of anybody preventing or trying to prevent someone else from saying what he thinks is true, speaking his conscience, I will agree with you. But I don't think that you've thought deeply enough about the difference between making fun of someone and preventing him from speaking. There's a meaningful difference.
I wasn't saying that was an example of presenting the...
No, you said that because Trump posted a naughty cartoon on Twitter, he's against the First Amendment. I'm like, no, it doesn't...
He's against the protest, which is an example of practicing the First Amendment.
No, you can certainly make fun of a protest without preventing the protest from happening.
That's an unacceptable way for the president to be acting, though, because he is the president of the United States. He can change people's course of action.
Okay, but can I wait? May I say one thing? Again, we're arguing past each other, and I hope I end with this, which is to say, you can make the case that he shouldn't have done that because it's unbecoming or whatever. Fair, fine, we can debate it. But I don't think that you're making the case he was abridging anyone's First Amendment. Criticizing, and this is part of the derangement of the left, that criticizing somebody is the same as committing violence against them or preventing them from speaking. That is not true. Trying to get someone fired from his job, I've been on the receiving end of that like about 100 times. Well, I guess I did get fired in the end. Sorry, I totally forgot. You know, I would argue that's like kind of a meaningful attempt to stifle speech. But I just see a big difference, but if you don't, I don't know how to convince you.
There's other examples of him stifling free speech.
All right, I think your questions were in good faith. I think you're trying to understand what I'm saying. I'm definitely trying to understand what you're saying, but I'm going to ask to go to the next questioner just because we've gone back and forth quite a bit. Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.